What's up, guys? It's Dave from Betsome. I'm going to go over a few NFL daily fantasy lineups and some of my plays from week 2. I'll start with quarterback. I like Carson Palmer a lot. He's my favorite quarterback this week at 6,900. He's got a low price and a great matchup, and people aren't too high on him at the moment, so he'll likely be a little lower drafted than the other top-tier guys this week. And he's got just as much upside as them. As I said before, he's got a great matchup at home versus the Bucs defense, who are very poor versus the quarterback. I also like Derek Carr. He's a little more expensive, but he's playing against Atlanta at home, and what could be a shoot 'em up with a 7th ranked OPRK. He'll be faded as well. Also, coupled with the fact that Breeze and Eli are playing against each other, Carr will also be very undervalued this week. Marcus Mariota is kind of more of a value play that I like this week at 6K. He plays at Detroit, who looks like they might be getting in a lot of these high-scoring shootouts pretty often this year, based on last week. Mariota has that big game potential and the right matchup there on the road. I mentioned Breeze and Manning earlier. They're two of the more expensive guys. If I had to pick either of them, I'd pick Eli just because he'll be a little less owned and he's a little cheaper. But they're both obviously great picks. The game's got a huge total. They're two great quarterbacks versus two horrible pass defenses. They are expensive, and they will be very popular in plays and high owned this week. At running back, I like David Johnson the most this week. He's the highest price, but it's for a good reason. He's home versus the Bucs, and he's looking very strong. I like C.J. Anderson as well, who's about 1,000 cheaper or 800 cheaper, who is home versus the Colts. And we should see a big game out of him as Simeon looks good, and I think he'll look to keep it on the ground, to keep it out of Luck's hands. The Colts defense is not that great, and last week obviously they had that high-scoring shootout with Detroit. But that 20th OPRK might leaving people to forget about Anderson a little more than they should, so I like him for that reason as well. And Latavius Murray is a favorite pick of mine as well this week. He looks great, and Oakland looks great. They're home versus a traveling Falcons team, a cross-country traveling team, and he's got a really, really low price at 5,700 right now. I think that if he keeps going the way he's going, he'll be more like 6,800 to 7K in just a few weeks. As far as wide receivers go, Beckham is the second most expensive receiver behind Antonio Brown, but if you are looking to spend at receiver, I would spend right there. These two teams, the Saints versus the Giants, might score 100 points in the air this week. A.J. Green is another one of those first-tier wideouts with huge potential, and he's got a good matchup at Pitt. He might be forced to go off here versus Pitt, who can put up 30 points pretty easily. So if Cincinnati's forced to keep up, A.J. Green should be the main beneficiary of that. I also like Crabtree at 6,100. He's actually got the number 1 OPRK this week, which I typically don't want to obviously draft a player with that, but that WR2 OPRK is definitely a little misleading, more so than other OPRKs. So I think that'll leave him faded and forgotten about this week, and I really like that, so I'm going to take a gamble on him, especially because they're playing that Atlanta defense that's not that great in the first place, and they're going to have to travel pretty far. Emmanuel Sanders is 6K. Simeon looks good. He seems to excel in those over-the-middle short routes and the broken plays that he's doing pretty well at getting out of and finding open, agile receivers like Sanders. Sanders excels in both of these areas as well. I'm going to gamble on him right now while most people are looking elsewhere. It has yet to be seen if him, Demaryius, and Simeon can be explosive or not this year, but I'm going to gamble on him here in week 2. And Mike Wallace, I picked him last week. I like him this year a lot. I think he's very undervalued as Flacco's now throwing it to him. And he's a real talent. So he came through for me last week. I think as the season progresses, his price goes up to more like 6K plus. So he's not being looked at right now, and he's pretty cheap. Also got a great matchup, 30th OPRK at Cleveland Browns. Tight ends. This one bit me in the ass last week. Kobe Fleener at 3,900 now. His price is even lower. He had a really bad week, but I'm not going to give up on him just yet. Breeze spreads the ball out very well, and he could easily be the recipient of a Brandon Cooks type game or a 2 TD type game just this week and be kind of a ghost last week. He's one of the cheaper tight ends on the board this week, People are too high on him, although I still think he'll be somewhat of a popular play. And he's got a great matchup versus a terrible defense and tight end defense. As far as team defenses go, I like the Redskins at 2,800. They're home versus the Cowboys, and the Cowboys look terrible, obviously due to injuries, but looks like it could be a long, awful season for them. Skins defense is about the middle of the pack price-wise, so it's a good value, good deal, and they might be overlooked a tiny bit as well. Panthers are the obvious pick this week, I feel like, that everyone's going to play, but for good reason. They're 3,900, and they're looking to bounce back from a subpar game one and humiliate this patched-together San Francisco team that's traveling across country on a short week after a late Monday night game. It's going to be a very popular play, but I do think it's going to be a good one. So those are my picks. Join me next week for Week 3 picks, and good luck this week. Win some money.